Are you struggling with roadblocks as a woman in the challenging and constantly changing world of corporate America? If you feel stuck in your career, you may be holding yourself back and may not even realize it. Prepare to be enlightened by the meaningful discussions here at the No Woman Left Behind podcast. Each week, gather the insight you need to break down those walls of limiting beliefs. Unleash your full potential and unlock the leader within. Listen to raw conversations with corporate women as they share inspiring stories with the purpose of obtaining their dream career and living a truly fulfilling life. Here's your host, Rosie Zelinskas.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the No Woman Left Behind podcast show. I'm Rosie Zelinskas, your host. I am so excited to have one of my really good friends on the podcast show today, Michelle Mehta. She is just a delight. She is just such a lovely person, and she's so easy to love. I just love Michelle. So let me tell you a little bit about Michelle. Michelle Mehta is a TEDx speaker, confidence expert, and international best-selling author. You may have seen her on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno or interviewing people like Dr. Deepak Chopra and Vicente Fox, the former president of Mexico. ABC television said of Michelle, she has overcome unthinkable obstacles and is one of the most successful teen coaches in 2020. Yahoo Finance named her as one of the top 11 female coaches to follow in 2021. She has worked with organizations like Morgan Stanley and Mass Mutual and Wells Fargo. She has coached mayors of major California cities and celebrities like James Haven, Angelina Jolie's brother. Michelle speaks to teens and women all over the country about overcoming peer pressure, bullying, and low self-worth by increasing their confidence to live a life they fully love and admire themselves every single day. She even shared this message at the U.S. Air Force Academy. So Michelle is quite a force to be reckoned. Again, she is going to talk to us about teenagers and their confidence. And the reason why I wanted to bring Michelle on my show is because when we teach teens to gain that confidence, then they are going to be able to continue in high school and move on to college with that confidence. And then eventually when they go into corporate, they're going to have that confidence so that they can feel prepared to ask for what they need, ask for the raises, the promotions, aspirations like that. So without further ado, stay tuned to listen to Michelle.
Hi, Rosie. Thank you so much for having me here. I totally am so grateful to be on your beautiful podcast and talk about all things teenagers and finding the right career path for them, because boy, is that so confusing and sometimes can be complicated. And so I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to be part of your community.
That's awesome. Thank you, Michelle, for being here. So Michelle, I know that you're a confidence expert, and that's what I want to focus on our conversation on, because I heard that ABC TV said that you have overcome unthinkable obstacles, and we may talk a little bit about your story, and you're one of the most successful teen coaches in 2020, which I think is amazing. Obviously, life is hard enough for adults, right? But when you're a teenager, you have so many obstacles and challenges, such as peer pressure. And I cannot even imagine being a teenager these days, having to figure out who likes you, who doesn't like you, all that good stuff. So why don't we start with, what has your experience been with teenagers these days on overcoming peer pressure and low self-worth?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that question. And I think it's such an honor to be recognized by ABC television on overcoming unthinkable obstacles. One of the things that they found out about me was that I was molested at the age of 16 by a family member. And I grew up in a family filled with family. I mean, I could get 50 people within a 5-mile radius, and there's always somebody living at my house as a permanent member. So it was always like my mom, my dad, my sister, and I. And then someone that was living with us for years. So it was always a family of 5. Either it would be like my grandparents, or it'd be my dad's cousin, or my aunt, or my uncle. So it was always filled with family until I was 16 years old. And so I grew up in an environment that love, joy, and connection was very much prevalent in the way I was growing up. And so until I turned 16 years old, I had my whole world spin upside down. Because I not only was I molested, but the summer before my molestation took place, I was actually being bullied for being a lesbian because I complimented a senior. I was a freshman and a sophomore at that time, and I complimented the senior saying, "I love your lipstick, and you remind me of Selena, the person who had just recently passed away, the Latin American singer." And so I was like, oh my God, you remind me of her. And seeing her video and her movies through the way J-Lo perceived her as an actor, and as I fell in love with that whole concept. And so just by complimenting her, my friends overheard that and would purposely touch my butt and say, "Ooh, look, she's a lesbian," or "She likes other women." And I didn't even know what that even meant, because in my mind, I was like, I can't see myself with the same gender. I get bored looking at my body already. And so that was basically the turning point of losing who I was at the essence. And through that, I realized, every single decision that I made based on worth and my value turned into a downward spiral. Even though I got accepted into my dream college, I got rejected from many other colleges when I was a senior. When I wanted to work in corporate America, I got laid off twice under the age of 25. And then I got laid off one more time under the age of 30. So I thought something isn't working. And along with that, I thought, maybe I should focus on relationships, right? Because maybe I'll find value by dating other men and who are more successful than I am, who are older than me. But in reality, they just wanted that one thing, which was sexual and not just the physical. There was no emotion connection. And then they ended up, taking advantage of me, and I didn't have the value to say no or run away from the situation. Then they took advantage of me, leading up into rape and having myself have 2 abortions in the process. So it just turned into this, like, I'm on this uphill battle, and now we're on this gigantic million miles per hour downward spiral. What am I going to do? How am I going to come out of it? Right. And the only way I could come out of it if I sought personal development.
Oh my gosh, Michelle, your story is, holy cow. There are no words. I cannot even say that I can empathize. I mean, you have been through so much. So I see how you are now where you are, and you're helping teens because you suffered through so much negativity and the molestation and the abortions and the bullying. And so you're young enough to still remember those years where you were a teenager. So when you're talking about low self-worth and teenagers today, how are you helping them with their low self-worth? Because just to put things into context, this podcast show is about women and how I teach them to move up the corporate ladder. And a lot of women hold themselves back. So I know that it starts when we're kids and teenagers, but for teenagers specifically, when they're not feeling like they're worthy, Michelle, what do they do?
Yeah. So understanding what is worth to you, right? How do you see yourself being valued? Sometimes we think of worthiness as, oh, I need to buy that Louis Vuitton bag because all my friends have that. Or I need to shop at Nordstrom's or Bloomingdale's because that's where everybody else is shopping at. But in reality is, how do you see yourself in the mirror? When you look in the mirror, are you extremely proud of the self that you are? Are you proud of every single scar on your body? Are you proud of the way your teeth are, the way you smile, the way your eyes brighten? Are you proud of that? Because the answer is no to any one of those things. You're diminishing your own value, because value starts from inside out. It does not go outside in. And we as a society are programmed with the outside. I need to have this, I need to have that. But in reality, do we really need it? You know, happiness is from inside. People are like, well, I want to choose happiness. But what does happiness mean to you? What does being high energy mean to you? Right? And that determines your own intrinsic value. And I didn't know anything about value until I saw counseling and therapy. And being an Indian woman, we don't go and magically go like, I'm going to go walk into a counseling office, right? We don't do that. We have a lot of internal biases of, is it worth it? Is it important? What will my family think? What will my friends think? But again, that's value that we're putting outside. And internally, when we look at value, it's not about the post that you see of your friends on social media or on TikTok, Instagram. It's more about, how do you value yourself in the mirror? Are you achieving the grades that you're getting? Are you excited about going to school? Are you excited about the next match that you're having, whether it be a basketball game or a tennis game or wrestling or swimming? How do you see yourself perform in the things that matter to you?
I think that is a perfect answer, because you're absolutely right. I think people are always looking for validation, especially when you're a teenager, right? And you think that if you're not liked but by all the kids in school, that you don't matter, that you don't have worth. But I agree that self-worth comes from the inside out, and all the people and their opinions, as well as the physical items, are just a tangent. Now, let's say that you have, and I think you have a couple of examples of teenagers that you have worked with. Can you give me an example of someone that you worked with that had that low self-worth? And what was your conversation with them to get them out of that low self-worth?
Absolutely. I love that question, because I just come to mind where I was working with a client named Elizabeth. And Elizabeth had this dream of being the best animator that she could be. I mean, her dream was to go into animation and work with Disney and Pixar. And in reality, she would draw in her spare time and she would paint in her spare time. But when she was looking at her drawings after completion, she said, but it's still not good enough. I still think need to work on it. And she would show her mom, and her mom would be like, that's amazing. And in her mind, she goes, well, you're just saying that to be nice to me. Wow. But in reality, it was beautiful. But because she didn't value herself, she didn't have the confidence to even get accepted. She didn't even know she had the confidence to even apply. Because in her mind, she always thought she wasn't going to be good enough. They're going to reject me. Because she saw herself in the mirrors. Yes, I love to draw, but Woodbury University is so number one in the animation world. I'm just a low somebody. No one's going to take me in. Right? Not realizing that her portfolio, when shown to the dean, was exactly what they wanted.
Wow.
Right? And we sometimes we sell ourselves short, even as adults, because we feel we're not qualified enough to get that job. We feel we're not qualified to get that car. We feel that our credit score isn't good enough. We feel that the apartment that we live in is not good enough, or the clothes that we wear isn't good enough. But you know what? That's why TJ Maxx and Ross were invented, right?
Absolutely.
Name brands for less for a reason. That's why outlets were invented, right? So you can still have the Michael Kors and the Coach bag, but you don't have to pay the $1,000. You could pay $500 and still get the same quality, right? But at the end of the day, it's what you want in that moment. And how badly do you want that? And so working with me for 6 months, not only did she get the confidence from the dean of the number one animation school in California, but she also got the congratulations, you've been accepted. We'd be more than happy to have you.
Oh my gosh. And so when she received that letter, Michelle, what was her reaction?
She couldn't believe it, because this was such a far-fetched goal. It's like, we think about, oh, how are we going to get to the moon? Well, now we've been to the moon multiple times. But that initial step, that initial jump, sometimes we make it so big as if it's impossible to reach the moon. But at the end of the day, if you don't try, you'll never reach it. But by trying, you might get one step closer to that yes. Or you might just land on that yes in a heartbeat, right? But the goal is to keep trying. And how much do you have conviction in yourself, right? There's a reason why she went to the dean with their entire portfolio. She didn't just go in with a little bit of characters here and a little bit of drawing here. I mean, she went with full-on sculptures and shading and all the things that artists require to draw to show where you're at. Because again, it's a creativity degree. It's a degree based on creative process. It wasn't just maths or science, it's a very artistic point of view. And so just having that confidence to knowing that she does belong there.
Right.
Right. And it's that conviction that she had within herself. So yes, she had that low self-worth because she felt she wasn't good enough. But when she showed her artwork really shyly, sheepishly, with a lack of courage way of showing it, and really scared, like, what if they don't like my work?
Yes.
What if they say it's not good enough? But what if they say it's the best thing that they wanted? What if they say that's exactly what we wanted? But we don't know. We focus on the negative so much because that's what we've heard our whole entire life. Absolutely. We heard the word no before we hear the word yes.
Absolutely. So I want to touch base on a couple of things that you said. So you said that maybe people don't even apply to whatever it is that they're looking for. And one of the things that I'm constantly harping at women is that, so Hewlett-Packard did a study many years ago, and they found that men apply for jobs having 50% of the skills, but women wait till they have 100% of the skills on the job description. So I'm not surprised that the same phenomenon is happening with teens, right? Because obviously these same teens are eventually going to go into the workplace. And our job, your job and my job, is to make sure that teens, both male and female, and women that are in corporate, if they want to move up the ladder, they realize that they are their own obstacles. Because if they're not applying for the jobs, like you said, you don't know if maybe it's going to be the one perfect description for you and you might get the job. So I just want to acknowledge the fact that I love that you're already teaching teens to know that they just need to go for it. So that's pretty
exactly. And Rosie, you brought up a really good point, because in the college applications, they look at the dream college. They look at the college requirements, and immediately some kids are like, yeah, definitely not my cup of tea. And there's some kids that are like, that is definitely my cup of tea. But regardless, you might get accepted from both, or you might get rejected from both. Just because you apply does not mean it's a guarantee yes.
Right.
And because you didn't apply, that's a guarantee no. So
exactly.
Just because you don't apply, you're losing out on that opportunity, period. Right? But if you do go out and apply, you never know, because maybe they're getting all the people with the perfect SAT scores, but maybe you had the imperfect SAT score and they're the ones that they're looking for to offset their own balance.
Exactly.
Right? Maybe they need someone like you in their university. So sometimes 100% doesn't mean it's 100%.
You're right. You're right. And the one thing that I tell women that are interested in applying, I'm like, let someone else make the decision for you. You go ahead and apply. And if you don't get it, then that's fine. You didn't lose anything. But like you just said, Michelle, if they don't apply, they're automatically discounting themselves.
Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. So
it's up to you who you want to get discounted. Do you want to discount the price, or would you like to decide, you know what? No, thank you. Right? Because when you're in power, women have the power to do everything. Women have the power to say yes, and the women have the power to say no. But we have been trained as a society to have it backwards.
Absolutely. Oh, gosh. Okay. So I know that you have a great blog, and one of your blog posts was about helping teenagers figure out how they can find their career. So could you talk a little bit about, because obviously I'm assuming that more parents and moms with kids are looking towards the future on how I can actually help my teenager figure out the career. So tell me a little bit about what you covered in that blog post.
Absolutely. So one of the things that I love is that, first off, figure out what they're already naturally good at. Every human being has strengths and weaknesses. Sometimes we focus on the weaknesses and make those our strengths. And we let the strengths go by because you're already good at that. But I'm saying focus on the strengths. What are they naturally good at? If they have organization skills, focus on that. If they have poor communication skills, don't focus on that. Focus on what they're naturally good at, because every human being has a unique blueprint on this planet. Every human being is born with that purpose. And as parents, figure out what they really enjoy. Find out what their interests are. And don't ask the question, why are you interested in this? Ask the question, what makes you interested in this?
Oh, God.
How do you feel about doing this particular activity? Do you feel like it's easy peasy, or are you daunting about that fact? Because if it's daunting, it means it may not be something that they're good at. You know, personally for me, I always had some vision in my brain that I was going to be in a business degree. And I didn't know what I wanted to do in business. But I took some personality tests in high school as part of our curriculum. Mm-hmm. And I kept going back into the accounting finance world. And going through college, I applied to Cal State Fullerton thinking, okay, they have a finance and accounting. Maybe I'll flip-flop between them. But I realized halfway through finance, I don't like finance. I hate anything to do with mathematics. Because halfway through finance, I took my first marketing class and it clicked. Because for me, I'm a visual learner. I like to see things, hear things, do things. And finance is more behind the scenes. Companies look at books all day long, but they don't talk about numbers on the television. But you'll hear a Coca-Cola ad. You'll hear some drug company talk about their product, right? And they're advertising that. And that's when it clicked. And so halfway through finance, I was like, I just need the C's to get the degree. I'm really going to focus my energy on marketing. But had I known that earlier, probably would have made different choices.
Exactly.
Right? And they put so much pressure on the 18-year-olds to figure out their life. In reality, the first 2 years is about exploratory.
Absolutely.
I recommend kids go undeclared, because through what you see on paper is not what you see in reality. Right? Just because it's theory-based doesn't mean it has to be practical-based. Right?
Yeah, and actually,
it's amazing in the book doesn't mean you're going to make it the same way. You might think it's disgusting.
Right.
Right? So think of every degree, every college career path like a recipe. Practice with it.
I love that, Michelle. I just recently heard a podcast with Brene Brown, and she said that when her daughter was getting ready to go to college, her daughter wanted to take a ton of AP classes, and Brene and her husband said, no, you're going to take this number, and then you're not going to take anything beyond that, because we want you to enjoy your high school years. And then she also said to her daughter, once she actually got to college, she said, no, you have to take something about geography, something about, I think she said astrology. So a lot of different things. And when you start taking many different things, like you said, exploratory and coming in undeclared, then by trial and error, you kind of start figuring out what you like by figuring out what you don't like.
Exactly.
So, yeah. So I think that's pretty powerful. So what else can a parent do to help their teen choose some kind of career path?
One of the things is, instead of coming from the expectation of they're going to follow your footsteps the same way you did your career path, is an expectation. Mm-hmm. And when you set an expectation, you're setting yourself up for failure. Because you raise the bar so high, you raise the bar on 15 out of 10 when these poor kids could be at a level 5.
Yes.
Mentally. And you put so much pressure on them. So now they're running around with burdens of boulders on their shoulders, trying to navigate life. Instead, just say, hey, you know what? Come with an open space. Mm-hmm. Come in with an open space. I just want to know more about you as an individual. This country, America, is based on individualism. Mm-hmm. We all come alone and we all die alone. And with the pandemic, it's been seen more so.
Yeah.
So take each person as an individual. Just because they're a product of your environment, doesn't mean they will become the product of your environment forever.
I think that's fantastic advice, Michelle, because being a parent myself, so my son is 24, my daughter's 21, and over the last couple of years, I have had to learn to just let go. So we're empty nesters, they're both on their own now. And I've kind of had little struggles within myself going, well, they should do it this way. And then when I sit back and be like, well, why do they have to do it this way? That's my stuff, my issues, not their issues. And sure enough, they're doing things the way they have decided to do them. And I just have to be supportive and accepting.
Exactly. Because when you let go, they will rise faster and stronger.
I love that.
It's like when you have a lot of people, they'll walk their dogs on a leash.
Yeah.
Right. And if you let the leash go, the dog just beats freely. A lot of times we as parents have a leash on our kids. And it's an invisible leash that does not retract. So it's always going to be 10 feet no matter what. So I say, put your hands up. Look, they're a product of an environment, which means they have already amazing values. Let them figure out what their core values are. Because as parents, as a society, we've taught them for right and wrong, and from wrong from right. But it's up to them to also experience life the way you experience life. Your parents have let you be free. So now it's about time that you let your kids be free. And America is a beautiful country to do that because we've been told from day one to make choices. We're constantly in a room where we're changing seats. In India, you sit with the same partner, your same friend from kindergarten to 12th grade. You do not move at all from your desk. In America, that's unheard of.
Yes, I didn't know that.
And in India, the teachers will rotate period after period. In America, the kids rotate period after period. So we're already trained the kids to be independent. We've trained the kids to make their own choices, to find their own friends. And that's why the seating chart keeps getting shifted every so often.
Especially for the talkers, right?
Yes, exactly. So let them be free because that's going to reduce your burden as well.
I love that. I love that. Okay, shifting a little bit to teenagers coping with high school pressure. So obviously we're still in a pandemic, 2 years in right now. The lack of socialization over the last 2 years, I was listening to a psychologist, and they were saying that kids over the last 2 years have lost so much socialization. So now that kids are back in school, how do they cope? How do they cope with that high school pressure specifically?
Absolutely. Well, think about what they're going through on a day-to-day basis.
Oh,
they wake up in the morning. There's already pressure to be on time for school. Then they get to their first period, and it's starting with workload, homework load, all right? Exams are coming up. And then they finish their sixth period, and they go into play sports. And it's, again, the pressure to perform. And if they're an AP or honors, then they have more homework to cope up with. So in that moment, don't feel sorry for your kids, but understand what's going on in their day-to-day basis. Ask them in their bodies, how are they feeling? How is their stomach feeling? How is their head feeling? How are their shoulders feeling? Because these all are points that also speak to us. Sometimes kids are just feeling nauseous because they're anxious.
Yes.
Sometimes they're just tired because they're just mentally checked out. So watch the tone of the way you're speaking to your kids. If you're having a bad day, they're also having a bad day. And sometimes kids become, I call it I'm sorry I saw you. Here's my angry vomit, right? I'm sorry I saw you. Here's all my frustration taken out on you. And the kids automatically become a punching bag without the parents even realizing what they're doing.
Oh, gosh.
Because you yell at the people that are closest to you.
Absolutely.
And kids are the closest to the parents, and the parents are the closest to the kids because they want the best for each other. But sometimes just the parental pressure and the comparison of, well, look at your older brother doing this. Look at your younger sister doing this. Look at your older sister doing, look at your old, these comparisons, your twins could be doing this. Stop the comparison. They're already being compared enough.
Yes. Now, you used a specific way of asking a question a little while ago. Can you repeat that question again, how you changed it? Because when I heard you change that question, it made a huge difference. So what was that question again?
I asked the question, instead of saying, why do you do something? We automatically go to why. Why are you playing video games? Why are you showing up like this? Why are you dressed like this? Instead, say, how does it make you feel when you play a video game? What makes you decide to wear this over that? What fashion trends are you following? How do these fashion trends make you feel? Because instead of just feeling like, when you ask a why question, what happens is a justification perspective. A lot of kids at the age of 2 and 3 would say, why, mommy? Why is the sky blue? Mommy, why do I have to wear this? And the answer always comes back to, because I said so.
Right.
That is a common phrase that's been used. Anytime a why question gets asked, it comes out, because I said so. Because your dad wants you to. Because your mom wants you to. And it turns into shutting down. But when you ask a what question or a how question, all of a sudden it's expansive energy that comes through. Because you're asking your body and you're asking your mind to give an answer, not your typical because I said so. And you let go of the judgment.
Yes.
You let go of the judgment that teenagers are constantly faced with.
And from a parental perspective, you open up the conversation to get to know your teenager instead of, why are you doing that? How does it make you feel? Like, what do you like about playing video games? I mean, I probably would have saved myself so many hours arguing with my son when he was going through that, had I been more savvy on how do I connect and how do I use language in a smarter way. So I think that's beautiful. Another thing that you said earlier is that every human being has a blueprint. What did you mean by that specifically?
Every human being is here with a purpose. That's why we're all not robots. Rosie, that's why you focus on careers and I focus on teenagers. We're both women. We're both ethnic women. You're from the Latin American background. I'm from the Indian background. Yet we are two different individuals. Mm-hmm. We both belong to the same coaching community. We both have similar mutual friends, but you're both different. And sometimes as parents, we put everybody in a box. Mm. All of your friends are studying mathematics. That means you should study mathematics too. All of your friends are doing computer science, which means you need to do computer science too. But what if I don't like maths or computer science, or I hate science in general? I am not going to follow where everybody else is going. I have my own path. We all have our own path, and it's about asking the right questions, coming from a place of curiosity. Get curious about your child, because no one's going to get more curious than you. And as parents, sometimes we fail because we put them on that judgment. All your friends are going to Magic Mountain, which means you have to go through too. But I hate heights. Okay. I don't like heights. I am not going there. Okay, well, respect that.
Right.
It's okay. It's okay if they don't follow the norms.
Yes, absolutely. And actually, I have a perfect example for that, because my daughter, Marissa, she's 21 now and she's an esthetician. But when she was approaching that college application process and we started kind of looking at colleges and stuff, the process was about 2 days old and she's like, I don't want to go to college. I was like, what? I'm like, oh no, you're going to college. And it took me a good 2 or 3 days to understand what she was telling me. And Michelle, it would have been disastrous if I forced her to go to college and I was going to spend money, and I was going to force her to do something that she was telling me she didn't want to do. She was already 18 years old. So I was like, you know what? It took me a couple of days of me to get over it. And then I was like, okay, what are you going to do? What's your alternative? So we started looking. Well, actually, she had already started looking at esthetician school. So she went to esthetician school for 9 months. And then now she does lash extensions and she does waxing. And she loves her jobs. But had I imposed my beliefs and my expectations on her, we would be having a very different outcome and relationship today. So I love that.
Absolutely. It creates resentment for no reason, right? Had you had forced her to go to college, she would have resented you from day one because she's following your dreams and she's not following her dreams.
Exactly.
And things are changing now. Things are changing more so than they did in the 80s and the 90s. So there's online schools that are available. There is, specialty schools that are available. So it's up to you what makes your child shine the most.
Yeah, no.
And giving them the options.
So Michelle, so when I go back to the socialization, like the lack of socialization, what have you noticed or what have you seen that the pandemic has impaired teens over the last couple of years?
I think first of all is they've forgotten to have communication with physical human beings. They're so caught up on the screens and they think those are the real friends. The interaction of, hi, how are you? Via text message comes back to, hi, I'm good. But the humanness of the conversation is missing. It's almost like you're reading words on a screen and now thinking how that person is actually feeling versus picking up the phone and calling. And regardless whether you feel like, oh, well, I don't need to talk to anybody physically. Well, in corporate America and in any job that you do, you need that human interaction. You need to know how to smile when you're communicating. You need to know how your eyes widen when you're communicating. And I think that's what's been happening. People have lost the ability to make eye contact and continue with the staring contest. Mm-hmm. I remember growing up, we used to have a staring contest and then the first one to blink would lose. Yeah. Right. And now people can't even keep an eye contact for like less than 5 seconds. It's almost like, oh my God, you're looking at me, I need to turn. Oh my God, you're looking at me and I need to turn. But instead, focus with that. Because through the eyes, you can figure out how that person is feeling internally. Because they say the eyes are the window to your soul. Right. So open up your courage to connect. Open up the vulnerability to connect. We are all humans at the end of the day. And you're not the only one that's gone through the pandemic. It's a worldwide pandemic. Mm-hmm. How we're experiencing the pandemic today is how India, Mexico, Argentina, all over Europe, Australia, New Zealand, Singapore. I mean, every country on this planet, even Antarctica, crying out loud, is experiencing the pandemic. So we are all in this together, but sometimes we forget that.
Wow. Yeah, no, I totally get that. Well, okay. So I can't believe how fast the time has gone, Michelle. I am going to ask you to give us 2 tips that you think would really impact teens, whether it's in their high school or college careers, because we're trying to prepare them for either a corporate job or some type of job when they come out of college, right? So, or whatever they choose to do. So can you share 2 tips that you think would be valuable?
Absolutely. Number 1 is Google what your strengths are. There's a book called The Strengths Finder. It's a quick exam that you can take online, but it literally depicts your top 5 qualities of who you are as a person. And it gives you career choices as a result of it. So understanding your strengths. So there's a book called Get to Know Your Strengths Now, Strengths Finder test. You can get that online. Mm-hmm. Understanding that. And number 2, I would say, know your love language, because that is the best way to understand how you communicate with yourself and how you communicate with others and how others can communicate back to you. Because a lot of conflict happens because they're speaking the wrong love language. There's a quiz on that too. It's understanding your 5 love language. It's by Gary Chapman. There's a book about that. And the Strengths Finder is by Gallup, the corporation called Gallup. And so understanding your strengths and knowing your love languages will impact you as a better human being, because these things are with you no matter what. Your love language is going to be with you till you pass away. Your strengths are going to be with you till you pass away. So it's not just about today. It's about your future. It's about how you interact with humans altogether.
Oh my gosh, I love this. And so, by the way, I actually use the Strengths Finder with my clients, and I also am words of affirmation. So I'm assuming your words of affirmation, Michelle?
I am words of affirmation and physical touch. I love those hugs.
I noticed that when we were in Colorado Springs together at the Air Force Academy, because we both spoke at the Air Force Academy, and I absolutely enjoyed your hugs, and I watched you just kind of gain energy from all of our co-speakers as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so I would like to let everybody know that Michelle's contact information is going to be on my blog. And Michelle, I believe you have a gift. So what is your gift?
My gift is that I'm offering a 10-step how to motivate your teen success guide for high school and beyond. It's about you and your child coming together and connecting about different communication styles. How you react is going to determine the outcome of your experience. And just little tips about, also I talk about why don't ask questions with the why, but ask questions with the how. So all of these things are available to you for download and in your inbox shortly, but it's all about you interacting with your kids, because your kids' success starts with you and it starts at home.
Oh my gosh, I love it. I think that's the perfect ending to the segment, that your kid's success starts with them, with the parent, and it starts at home. So I am just so excited that you came on to the No Woman Left Behind podcast. And thank you so much. I appreciate your time. And I'm sure I'm going to have you back, because we just like barely started talking about teens and confidence. So I am going to have you back on the show at some point, Michelle. Is that
perfect? Thank you so much, Rosie. It was such a beautiful honor to network with you and your community. And if you guys are listening to this podcast, please take this advice to heart. And the change begins with you.
Awesome.
The change begins with you. So that's all I have to say. Thank you so much for your time. I love you so much.
All right. I love you too. Have a good day, everybody. I told you all that Michelle Mehta was a force to be reckoned. She is just a lovely person. And I love all her tips that she gave us, especially the asking how to ask questions properly to your teenager so that you can connect. The last thing we're going to do is recap the 2 tips that Michelle gave us. The first one was to Google your strengths, meaning figure out what your strengths are. So she recommended to do Strengths Finder by Gallup. So that's the first one. And then the second thing is to know your love language. So Gary Chapman is a reverend in his 80s. My husband and I have gone to see him twice in person. And he wrote a book called The 5 Love Languages. And the 5 love languages are physical touch, acts of service, words of affirmation, quality time, and gifts. So those are the 5 different love languages. So it's how you interpret that someone loves you. So I think that's a very important tip, because if you're trying to relate to your teenager, and there is a book that's for teenagers. So it's the 5 love languages for your teen. So it's really important for you to know what your teen's love language is so that you can relate to them much better. So those are the 2 tips that Michelle gave us. So again, a very powerful, great conversation with Michelle about teen and confidence. So I hope that you guys got a lot out of this. Michelle's information is going to be on my website blog. So be sure to look her up on my blog. So with that, remember to be brave, be bold, and take action.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Let these stories of self-encouragement and professional development serve as a guide in navigating through corporate America in the most practical and fulfilling way possible. Do not forget to subscribe to the show at nowomanleftbehind.com for more content like this. Leave a rating and share it with your friends because we want to make sure that no woman is left behind. Until I see you next time, remember to be brave, be bold, and take action.